I got a comment on my last video that was too good not to share. Because here's the thing nobody warns you about when you are on a GLP-1. Losing weight, that's the easy part. Eating a calorie deficit, watch the numbers go down, you'll feel momentum, and you will get there. It might take time. Some people lose faster than others, but the path from here to there is pretty straightforward. Even people who have lost over 100 pounds like me can walk into maintenance completely unprepared for how different it actually is. After losing 125 pounds on compounded tirzepatide and being in maintenance for over 2 years now, today I wanted to share some of the most valuable lessons I've learned along the way, starting with this super wise comment that was shared on one of my videos, because I think it is something that all of us need to hear, whether you are already in the maintenance phase or you are still in the middle of your weight loss journey. Because of course, for all of us, the goal is to be in maintenance one day. And honestly, you will get there before you know it. Okay, so here is the comment. And we're going to walk through all of these points. And then I've got a couple of my own additions to add at the end. So make sure you stick around for those. So this viewer shares that when you're trying to figure out your maintenance dose, that there are 3 things that you should check in with yourself about. And I completely agree with these. So point number 1 is that your appetite should be controlled, not eliminated. When you're in a good place in maintenance, you do feel hungry. And I think that can be a really startling sensation coming from a place where you are trying to lose weight at all costs. Of course, we should not be starving ourselves on a GLP-1 to lose weight. But I'll be honest, when I was in the middle of my weight loss journey, when I was losing 100 pounds in 10 months, it was not because I was walking around hungry all the time. There were plenty of days where I just did not feel hungry. I was making sure that the dose of medication that I was taking was really controlling my food noise and giving me what I call the pause. The pause is something that I did not have prior to starting on a GLP-1. The pause is what I was missing that helped me gain 75 pounds in a year. I did not struggle with my weight my entire life. I gained weight really quickly, and it was due to a lot of life stress and hormones after I turned 35, and all of my eating was robotic. It was mindless. I never thought about it until after the food was already in my body and it was too late to do anything about it. And so once I started on a GLP-1, it slowed my brain down just enough to have the pause, where I could look at a plate of food, or I could look at a bag of chips, or I could look at a fast food restaurant, and I could have a discussion inside my brain. Am I hungry? Do I like this food? Do I want this food? Will this food help me reach my goals? Will I feel good after eating this food? All of those questions are things that I could not do prior to having a GLP-1 on board in my brain. But once I had the pause, which I think is one of the very best side effects of a GLP-1, I could make all of those decisions for myself. And because I was coming from a place of such disordered eating, where I was eating out 5 to 7 days a week, I was eating fast food, where I was binge eating regularly, where I was eating a dozen donuts or multiple combo meals, I wanted to use this medication as a tool to help me succeed. And that meant quieting down all of that noise in my brain and really taking an adjustment period to get used to what normal was again. So as I was going along on my weight loss journey and increasing in dose, every time I increased in dose, I felt that positive side effect of the pause amplified again. And the result of that was that a lot of the time I just wasn't hungry. Some days I didn't eat very much. Some days I had a protein shake and that's it. This is not medical advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist, a dietitian. I'm not certified in anything. I'm an expert on only myself, but I want to share my experience in the hopes that you might be able to relate to some of it too. For me, the effects of the shot were really strong at the beginning of the week, but by the end of the week, things seemed to level out. So if I looked at my calorie intake over the week, I do feel like I was eating in a pretty healthy place. It just so happened that sometimes, usually when I was going up in dose, what I would eat at the beginning of the week after a shot would be pretty minimal. After 10 months of intensely focusing on losing weight and upping my shot every time I felt a little bit of that food noise coming back, when I got to my maintenance phase, it was a huge change.
to go from trying to tamp down any hunger or any food noise and instead try to let that come back into my life just a little bit. I will say that I did not do this perfectly. I entered maintenance in May of 2024 after losing 100 pounds. I actually started decreasing my dose at that point because I wanted to increase my calories because I was trying to focus on building muscle and strength training, and I just didn't feel like I was getting hungry enough to make that happen. Even though I was decreasing my dose, I actually continued to lose weight. So I was eating in a calorie deficit. The weight came off much more slowly. It took me an additional 5 months to lose my last 25 pounds. But I do feel like that was a more healthy way to lose that last bit of weight because I was finding a lot more balance in my life. And I was really getting used to a normal cycle of being hungry again. I know there are some people that say there's no such thing as normal, but I just like to envision normal, naturally thin people. The people in my life who have never struggled with their weight. They do eat when they're hungry. They are not people that typically skip meals. These are people who wake up and they're hungry for breakfast and they eat breakfast. They don't say, oh no, I'm not gonna eat breakfast. I'm gonna fast until noon. These people usually eat breakfast. These are people who usually aren't ones who are skipping lunch because they're busy or they forget about it. They are hungry at lunchtime and they eat lunch. These are people who eat dinner because they're hungry at dinner time. And that way they're not snacking or binging late into the night. So adjusting my medication until I got to the point where I was operating more like a normal person was really key for me in finding success in maintenance. You, of course, want to talk to your doctor anytime you're adjusting the dosage of your medication, but I do think that this takes some experimentation. There are some people who believe that as soon as you hit maintenance, you should start decreasing your dose, that you should see how low you can go before you gain any weight back. And that's the method that I did when I hit maintenance because that seemed to be the pervasive attitude at the time. And I think now I might do things a little bit differently. I think for me, I have realized that my best maintenance dose was actually the top dose that worked for me, the dose that worked the best for me while I was losing weight. For me, that was 10 milligrams. At one point, I did go up to 12.5 milligrams, but I had a lot of side effects and I felt really sick at that dose. So I think I only took 2 shots of 12.5 milligrams. I went back down to 10 milligrams.
And that is the dose where I lost the last 20 or 30 pounds of my 100-pound weight loss. I did decrease my dose. I continued to lose weight. And then eventually I needed to up my dose again. And I have just found that I feel my best taking 10 milligrams. And I think it's really important to remember that it is not morally superior to me taking less of this medication than somebody else. The very best dose is the dose that's going to work for you. So if I was hitting maintenance and starting from scratch all over again, I would probably think about staying on my max dose that I had hit. For each of us, that's different. Some people get to the actual max dose of 15 milligrams. Some people don't ever have to get past 5 milligrams. Whatever the max dose was that worked for you, I would probably stay on that for a couple of months. And then once I had found some stability in my maintenance lifestyle, then I might experiment with moving down in dose to see if I could continue to maintain my lifestyle easily without any negative side effects. This is a really tricky thing to talk about. And I know for me, I have experienced having my dose too high in maintenance. While you might think that if you have your dose too high, you will be losing weight, that has not been my experience. I have been maintaining roughly around 118 pounds, never going more than 3 to 5 pounds on either side of that for over 2 years now. And honestly, the dose of my medication or what I eat really doesn't affect my weight anymore. My weight is just so steady and stable. But what the dosage of my medication does affect is whether I am able to make good choices. And this next thing I'm going to share seems so contrary to what you might assume a higher dose would do to somebody, but I thought I'd share because it's just one example of how this medication can do weird things to you and how you really have to experiment on yourself and be honest with yourself about what's happening in your body so that you can manage your maintenance in the very best way for you. So when I feel like my dose is too high, when I have too much medication in my system, I don't feel hunger like I normally would, as you would expect because this is GLP-1 and it suppresses your appetite. But instead of just not eating, what it actually does for me, it just makes me really not care about food and not care in such a way that I will eat crap food because I know I can't eat that much of it. And so I'm not worried about gaining weight because I'm eating ice cream or I'm eating French fries or chips, but it takes away the rational thinking and the part of this experience where I have to put in the effort to maintain my weight. That for some reason, if I know that my portions are being controlled, I just don't care what I eat. And I have found myself eating really poorly. I don't like that. I want to be somebody who eats healthy. I want to be a good example for my children. And I want to be somebody who cares about themselves and is putting the best ingredients in their body. I want to cook healthy foods for my family. And I found when my dose is too high, I just can't do that. When I can find the sweet spot of my dose, where it is managing the food noise, but not eliminating all of my hunger, I feel like a normal person. I feel like I'm able to eat regular meals. Most days I'm eating 3 meals a day. Typically my first meal is a protein shake. Then I will have a salad for lunch and then some sort of yummy protein and vegetables for dinner. I usually don't snack in between that. I might have dessert once or twice a week. And eating like that just makes me feel so good. I feel my best when I eat like that. I feel like it's so important to find your sweet spot in maintenance where you are feeling hunger, but you're not controlled by it. And that leads directly into the commenter's second point, which is that your maintenance dose should allow you to get adequate protein intake. You will want to do your own calculations to figure out the best protein goal for your body. We are all so different and we have so many things going on. You could totally meet with a nutritionist or a dietitian or use an online calculator to calculate your protein goals. For me, I try to hit about 100 grams of protein a day. During my 10 months of losing 100 pounds, I absolutely did not hit 100 grams of protein every day. There was just no way. I know there are people who do it, but that was not the case for me. There were many days where the only protein I got was from my protein shake, which was about 30 grams of protein. Again, because my appetite was ebbing and flowing with the concentration of medication in my shot throughout the week, I always tried to do my best to get in more protein as I could eat more. So I did prioritize protein for every bit of food that went into my mouth. But during the beginning of the week after a shot, especially when I was going up in dose, I just didn't hit those protein targets. We all know that protein is so important, especially for maintaining our muscles and building muscles. And I'm somebody who firmly believes that you can lose weight and build muscle at the same time. But for all of us, when we're losing a large amount of weight, if you have 75 or 100 or more pounds to lose like I did, it is inevitable. You are going to lose some muscle, and that's okay. I lost more than 50% of my body weight. There's no way I need as much muscle as I had back when I was carrying around a 243-pound body. Right now I have a 118-pound body, and that just requires less muscle to move through the world. And as much strength training and weightlifting that I was doing very intentionally, and I was gaining visible muscle all over my body, I had a couple of DEXA scans that showed that I also lost muscle. I actually lost 8 pounds of muscle in my trunk area just during my last 25 pounds of weight loss. And I think that's really a cautionary tale because that was while I was transitioning to maintenance and I was still experimenting with my dose and trying to figure out how I could eat enough to maintain my weight. And I continued to lose weight. I was losing more weight every week, even though I wasn't trying. And if I was losing that much weight, it probably means I wasn't eating enough protein. So in maintenance now, protein is really a non-negotiable for me. It's the anchor that I plan every meal around every single day. It's the first thing on my plate that I eat, and everything else fits in around it. If you need some ideas for protein options, I actually have a free protein guide that I would love to share with you. I'll put a link to download it in the comments, but I share some of my favorite protein options with actual pictures and like the brand that I enjoy eating. so that you can find some great options for making protein the center of your plate. Okay, now point number 3, and this one I really, really love, that your maintenance dose of a GLP-1 should allow you to move your body and strength train effectively. And I think this point might be a key missing piece for a lot of people. Because when you're in maintenance and you are coming off the high of losing weight, and it is a high, and I probably have somewhat of an addictive personality. I mean, hello, eating out 5 to 7 days a week. And I do think I was somewhat addicted to losing weight. It was the thrill of my life. It was something I looked forward to every single day, to get on the scale and see the weight go down. And in the 10 months that I was losing weight, I never once had 1 week where the scale went up, because I weighed myself every single day. And if during the course of the week, the scale was not going down enough for my liking, I took drastic measures to make it happen. I changed things in my life, whether that was tracking my food religiously, tracking every bite that was going into my mouth, weighing and measuring my food, whether that was talking to my doctor about increasing my dose so that I was feeling the effects of the medication in a way that allowed me to succeed. And while I was working out from the very beginning, I started out with walking on day 1. I started walking around my block. I knew how important movement was going to be to my journey, and I wanted to start it from the beginning. I also started strength training right away. I did not wait until I was super fit before I started strength training. I did it in a way that my body could handle. It was very light strength training, where I was working out 3 days a week, doing 20-minute workouts. Most of them were full body workouts, so I wasn't stressing any one body part so much that I couldn't get off the toilet or walk the next day. But once I had lost that first 100 pounds, I looked at my body. I stood out and I looked at it, and I stood in a mirror and I said, my body does not look the way that I thought I would look when I reached a healthy weight for my height. I am 5'4". A healthy weight for my height is 145 pounds. When I was at 145 pounds, I thought I just looked fluffy still. I just didn't look thin or fit. And of course, it was a huge difference coming from 243 pounds. I was so thankful and so grateful, but I wanted more. So I amped up my strength training. I started doing progressive overload, doing workout programs where I was doing the same workout for 4, 6, even 12 weeks, where I would repeat the same exact workouts, where I was fatiguing specific muscle groups. I might be doing back and biceps, and then quads and glutes. And I would be doing these workouts in a way where I was doing one workout 1 week, using a certain amount of weight. Then when I repeated that workout, the same workout the next week, I was upping the weight on that workout. I have a smart home gym called a Tonal that makes this super easy for me, because all I do is push a button and it tracks it all for me and automatically calibrates the weight to the perfect weight for me and ups it as my strength increases every week. But you can absolutely do this same style of working out with dumbbells, even with bands, whatever you have at home or whatever you can find at a gym. The key is just to continually stress your muscles so that you're lifting heavier and heavier weights over time. When I started getting really serious about my workouts and was working out so intensely 5 to 6 days a week, that's when my weight just kind of kept coming off. I was training so much that even though I had increased my calories, it wasn't enough to sustain and maintain my weight where it was. I had to be able to eat more. And I felt my training suffer when I wasn't eating enough. So it was a lot of trial and error and experimentation to figure out where my calories needed to land to support my training at the load that I was giving it. And as I ebb and flow out of training, where I'm in a phase right now where I'm kind of just coasting, I'm not really working super hard. I work out every single day, but I'm doing maybe 20, 30-minute workouts. I'm not really focused on building muscle right now. It's summer. I'm hanging out with my kids. I don't have a ton of time for workouts right now because we have swim team and I'm running kids to activities and camps and things like that. And I am totally fine with that. But the key is that I have to adjust my calorie intake for this new level of maintenance. So the calories that I need to maintain my weight changes over time. It's never a one and done situation where I can eat the same way all the time. And I think that that was a little bit hard for me to recognize and understand when I came into maintenance. And I think that this is what naturally thin people kind of do intuitively. And when you talk about things like intuitive eating, this is something that I could never do prior to being on a GLP-1 because my brain wanted to eat everything in sight all the time. But now that I have a GLP-1 giving me space in my brain, giving me that pause, I can intuitively eat and know, okay, I might need to skip a carb for dinner a couple times a week. Every night at dinner, I don't need to have rice or potatoes. Whereas if I am strength training 5 to 6 days a week, I need those carbs every single night at dinner. When I'm light on the strength training, I might choose to skip dessert more than when I was going heavy with the strength training. And just to be clear, this is not a case of like earning your calories. And for me, I never want exercise to be about that. It's not a punishment. It's something I do because it makes me feel my best. It's something that I enjoy doing now. And while I wholeheartedly believe that food is the main driver of weight loss, like 90% of your weight loss is going to be because of the food that is going into your mouth. So little of weight loss is about exercise. I think that shifts in maintenance. And a lot of maintenance is figuring out how to balance your level of physical activity, whatever that might be, with the food intake that you are putting into your mouth to find this equilibrium that allows you to live a full and happy life and continue to maintain your weight without a ton of effort. Okay, so those were the viewers' 3 points, and I've got 2 of my own to add. And what I just talked about kind of leads right into it. That I think a huge part of maintenance is reintroducing food freedom. I lost 100 pounds in 10 months, and you do not lose that much weight by cheating or by indulging very often. I was super strict when I was losing weight. I was so intentional about what I was eating. I did not want to eat French fries. I did not want to eat ice cream. It was not like I was missing out on those things. I was choosing to not indulge in anything because I was so focused on meeting my goals. I wanted to get to my goal weight as fast as possible. There are some people who don't believe in losing weight fast, and that is fine. They're going to indulge in ice cream. They're going to have the French fries. You do you. For me, I was dying, literally dying under the weight of my own body, and I wanted to shed that weight as fast as possible. I was so committed to my weight loss goal that I even skipped my birthday cake that year. And I have no regrets about that, but that is not a sustainable way to live life, or at least it isn't for me. It's not a way that I want to live forever. Food is a huge part of the social fabric of our lives, and I want to be able to enjoy food. But it took a huge mindset shift once I entered maintenance to be able to reintroduce the idea that food can be fun. That food is not only just fuel for my body, but food can connect you with others. That my kids can bake something and I can have a bite of it because we're sharing that experience together. That I can have a piece of birthday cake on my birthday because we're celebrating and it's a joyful time and it's okay. The beauty of maintenance is that you are generally going to be eating a few more calories anyway. And so I like the ability to use some of those extra maintenance calories to fit in some of these more fun foods that I really avoided during the weight loss part of my journey. And the beauty of being on a GLP-1, again, is that pause. That it's not like I'm wolfing down a piece of birthday cake. I'm not over at the dessert table at a party and just putting things in my mouth mindlessly. That I could look at a dessert buffet. We just went on a cruise recently, and I can look at the desserts and I can think about, is there anything I actually like? And a lot of the time there isn't. I'm probably a pretty picky eater, and if I'm going to eat a dessert, I want it to be something that I really enjoy, something that I like. And sometimes I don't see something, so I'm not going to eat it. I am not going to eat something just because it's there. I'm going to eat something because I'm going to enjoy it. I could take a bite of something, decide I don't enjoy it, and throw the rest away. That is something magical that never once happened prior to being on a GLP-1, but is something that can totally happen now. And I think having the freedom to try those things and make those decisions is really a huge part of learning to live this lifestyle forever.
My next point is about disconnecting from the scale
and taking a holistic approach and looking at all the data and letting go and loosening up on the grip that the scale has on us. If you are losing 100 pounds like I did, the scale is everything. I woke up every morning so excited to weigh myself. I went and I weighed myself every morning. I lived or died by the scale. What I did every single day was dependent on what the scale told me. If the scale was not going down enough for my liking, well, I needed to amp up my efforts during the day. I was going to drink more water. I was going to make sure to track my food. I was going to make sure that I was getting in enough fiber. I was going to make sure I was getting in my protein. I was going to up my protein. I was going to do an extra workout that day, go for an extra walk, get an extra 5,000 steps. I did all those things because I wanted to reach my goal weight as fast as possible. And that obsession with the scale served me well. I lost 125 pounds. I am fitter. I am healthier. I am happier than I've ever been in my entire life. So I'm not going to tell you that that obsession was wrong because it worked for that season. But that's the thing. I didn't want to go on like that forever. And here's what I feel like not enough people talk about. Your relationship with the scale has to completely change in maintenance. And letting go of it was one of the hardest things that I did. Once you hit a healthy weight for your height, losing more weight has diminishing returns. I already pointed out that during my last 25 pounds of weight loss, after I had already achieved a healthy weight for my height, I lost 8 pounds of muscle. Some of us don't have 8 pounds of muscle to spare, and it might be better to hold on to that muscle. I actually had somebody ask me recently because I was telling them about how I didn't lose my boobies or my butt until I lost that last 25 pounds. And I really didn't have a ton of sagging skin. And so I had a tummy tuck, I had a breast lift and breast implants last summer. And somebody asked me, wouldn't it have been easier to just gain 20 pounds back? And yeah, that would have been an option. So I think that when we're losing weight, I think a lot of us need to stop and think about what are the benefits of continuing to lose weight? We get to a point where we're healthy. And I know a lot of us who are living life in a drastically smaller body than maybe we were living in, you will have people in your life telling you, when are you going to stop losing weight? Are you going to keep losing weight forever? You're wasting away. All of those kinds of comments, they aren't really helpful. But what I think is helpful is taking pictures of yourself and really like looking at it from an outside perspective. I know for me, I could look in the mirror and I'm looking at my body every day, and it was really, really hard to see the me in that. I was seeing the old me, the 243-pound me. But when I took a picture, especially if I put it side by side with my before picture, I could see the drastic difference in myself, and I could look at it like from an outsider's perspective and think, oh my gosh, like that girl is skinny. So if you are just starting on your weight loss journey, take some full-length pictures because you will appreciate having those later. Take those pictures all along your journey and compare them to see how far you've come. Some other things that I did when I was trying to figure out from an outsider's perspective whether I had lost enough weight were that I switched to a smart scale. I was using a regular bathroom scale before that, but I switched to using a Renpho scale that measures muscle mass. And while these are not completely accurate, I did compare it with my DEXA scan results, and they were close enough for me, so much so that I know that directionally I can trust which way the scale is going. And I also think that just having a few trusted advisors in your life, some people who you can talk to objectively and say, hey, what do you think about where I am? You know, what do you think? Let me show you my data. Let me show you my DEXA scan. Let me show you what my scale says. Let me show you my dosage record. And just having some people in your life who you can talk to and who aren't going to judge you or be quick to say you're too skinny or you've lost too much weight. I think being able to listen to our closest loved ones and get that outside perspective can be really, really helpful because it can be really hard to see when you're in it And when you're still in that obsessive phase of chasing a number on the scale and getting the number to go lower, I think it can be so hard to stop chasing that goal. For me, I started strength training and I started building muscle. And my husband told me a million times, you have to be okay if the scale goes up a little bit. You have to be okay with it. And sometimes I will say to him like, oh my gosh, I'm up like 4 pounds. And he will tell me, great, that's fine. That's good. You could gain a few pounds. And I love that he's so supportive in that, because he knows that the goal should not be my ultimate motivation anymore. And really, as long as I am fitting in my clothes, as long as I'm feeling good in my skin, if I'm able to go and have fun with my kids. Today, I went roller skating. If I can have a pool party and wear a bathing suit in front of a crowd of people and feel comfortable and confident, I think all of those are the real signs of success. That I am feeling good and doing my best to take care of myself. And really, the number on the scale really doesn't affect my life anymore. Which brings me to my last point, which is when you find food freedom and you're not obsessed with food anymore, when you let go of the scale, there can be a void in your life once you hit maintenance. This void was something I had no idea about and I was completely unprepared for. Nobody talks about this. And I think it's because it can sound like you're being ungrateful. Like you lost all this weight, you hit your goal. Why would you feel anything other than joy at this point? But here's what actually happened when I hit my goal weight. I felt empty. For so long, I was losing weight like it was my full-time job. Every single day, from the second I opened my eyes until the second I went to bed, had this driving purpose. I had a singular focus and a singular mission to lose the weight. And then I got there. The mission ended, and I really did not know what to do with all that energy. And as hard driving and exciting as weight loss is, maintenance is honestly pretty boring. You don't get the dopamine hit of the scale going down every day. You don't get to go shopping for smaller sizes every month. Your body stops changing in dramatic ways, and you're just living your life day by day, which is so wonderful. But it's also really strange when you have been living through such a huge transformation. So what saved me was having some things to pour my energy into. For me, a huge part of that was fitness. I amped up my strength training. I was working out like crazy and really, really enjoying it. I started playing pickleball. I joined a pickleball league and started making friends at pickleball and playing and really enjoying a physical activity and a sport for the first time in my life. I started doing Pilates with my husband and really enjoying getting to move my new body in ways that I had never dreamed of moving before. I actually started a podcast. I started walking and had a podcast called Walk With Me, where I would just walk and talk about what it was like to kind of transition into this maintenance journey. And I felt like I just needed more outlets for my energy because I had this empty space in my life that I wanted to fill. And that shift from chasing a number down to building up my life into something that I wanted to live every day and something that I was excited to live every day. The habits that got you to maintenance, the protein, the movement, the consistency, those don't change. They become your life. The medication may also be a part of your life long term, like for me. But how you think about your journey as a whole has to change in maintenance, because maintenance isn't the finish line. It's the life that you get to build. And it does look different than the road that got you here. But let me tell you from the other side that this goal life is better than I ever could have imagined. And I can't wait for you to join me here.